Hello, everyone.
Hi, I'm back. Oh.
Yep. All right. Here, I'll go ahead and promote you, Andrew.
Okay, yeah, I'm not actually seeing anything yet, is it?
Yeah, I'm not showing anything. So yeah, you can, since you're going first, you can take over.
Okay, yep, let me get ready for that.
So apologies, I'm going to make this announcement several times, but if anybody needs a VM or having trouble connecting to the VM, go ahead and just put it in chat and put your email as well, and I'll make sure to get you invited. So there should be a VM set up for everyone. Everybody who signed up, I believe I've sent an email to, but if for some reason you don't have it, just let me know. Oh, one more new person signed up, so, or no, I don't know. So if somebody didn't get it, just let me know.
Okay, I've messed up my display. Are you able to see? Yep.
Yeah, see just fine.
Okay, I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to
Yeah,
get
we
in.
should have 39 in here, so.
Somehow I've messed up my display. Okay, it says it's recording, but I've just got a toolbar.
Yeah, it's recording, don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, somehow I'm in some kind of minimized view. I'll turn off my email. Yeah, I imagine people are going to take a few minutes to switch between.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not monsters. We'll give people a little break between sessions.
Speak for yourself.
So everyone's doing all the work.
Oh, Abram, you beat me to the punch. I was going to say that about you.
Yeah, I figured. I thought I'd jump ahead of that bullet real quick.
Yeah, missed you, boo.
All right, I just resent, well, I've had people saying they don't have the registration link, so I apologize, but I'm just going to resend the invites real quick just to make sure everyone has it. So I apologize if you're being spammed.
So I have to remind myself about the exercises. I think I wrote these last weekend, but it seems like everything's happened in between. So, right. So a quick skim ahead. All right. Yeah. Okay.
So again, if anyone has any problem with their VM, just post in chat. I'll help you out as quick as I can.
And Okay, so you start around there. Okay.
Yep, I'm exercise 6 on.
Okay, so we're up to 25.
Yeah, we're getting close. We'll give just another minute or so.
So Abram, I'm trying to connect to the virtual and it's just kind of spinning. It's starting.
It does take a little bit to initially start.
Okay.
So are you talking about the Azure page, or actually have you downloaded the remote desktop link yet?
I'm just trying to get the Azure page to start.
Okay, yeah, it takes a little bit the first time.
Okay.
So as long as you were able to log in,
Mm-hmm.
it should give you access.
Okay.
Here, I'll open mine just to make sure everything's running. Because essentially what it's doing is it's assigning you to a machine. And what you should see, it should just say like my virtual machines and have a little card layout with a little computer icon in the bottom right. And that's what will download the remote desktop. Sorry, Mark, I don't understand your question. You should see a computer, one listed that says Plex Web Generation. And if you connect to that one, it should just be a regular Windows virtual instance. So if that's what you're seeing, then everything is correct. No, it's actually a different remote desktop than the previous sessions. They were all different machines that we had set up specifically for each workshop. So the link that I sent out this morning, if you need me to resend it, let me know. The link I sent out this morning should connect you to that machine as well. So the one that you launch will say Plex Web Generation as the name. Yeah. So not only with this, we'll be doing APIs, but if you're in any of our talks yesterday, you'll actually be, well, you won't really be writing with VS Code, but you'll get to see VS Code a little bit. The IDE that I keep raving about that I think everyone should use. So.
Okay, so we've got 27. I know there were quite a few more registered, but should I just get moving, get started on that?
Yeah. Yep. So just so everyone knows the instructions that Andrew's showing, there should be a link on your desktop for it. It's a PDF. There's not Adobe installed, so it's just showing Chrome as the icon. But if you just double click it, it should launch it and you should have the exact same instructions. And we'll be walking through all of this with you as well. In general, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. But if you feel like you need to just ask and speak up, don't worry about interrupting us. That's not an issue. This is kind of a group collaborative effort. And so sorry, Andrew. Yeah, you can take it away.
Okay. So Colin's asking for a link. Is that a link to the VM, Colin, or the? Well, yeah, you must be in the meeting. So yeah.
Okay. Colin, can you put it in all chat, your email address, and I will send you one right away?
Yeah, it's for my for the link to the VPN.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So just put your email address in the all chat for Zoom, and I'll forward you one.
Okay. So for those that were at our workshop in the last conference in Fort Lauderdale, Abram and I had a imaginary company called VHS by Mail, and they are a movie company that sends out your favorite movies on VHS tapes for the VHS aficionados. So yeah, business is obviously going very well for them. They the last conference, they set up a web client application and tried out a few other things. So now they're moving on and they want to kind of communicate more with the outside world. So we're introducing some APIs for them. So we're going to be consuming APIs. They're going to connect to a service called the Open Movie Database, retrieving movie information from there. And we'll show how to do that in Plex generated Java with some source code objects, and then display the results in a regular Plex grid. And then we'll look from the web client angle, where we'll set up a JavaScript control template that will let us display the movie information and call the REST API service from JavaScript. So just to give you a taste of two different ways to consume APIs that are available to to Plex and web client applications. And then Abram's going to show how to publish an API directly from your Plex functions using a product called Quarkus. So he can talk about that shortly. I'll just kind of walk you through the steps we'll go through. So we're going to be using this Open Movie Database, and it requires what's called an API key. So that's just a code that you send with your requests to identify yourself. So basically it's free to use, but they limit it to like 1,000 requests a day. But as there's quite a few of us on this workshop, we might hit that 1,000 a day limit just using the key that I'm providing. So there's an optional step to go in and request an API key. So you just basically give your email address, and then they'll send it to you in your email. Then you'll get a link to click on to activate it. But if you don't do that, that's fine. I just don't want people to the requests to fail because we've reached the limit. So then
essentially, if no one does it, this will still work, but it'll eventually probably break down. I actually have a separate key set up for my section. But if you're not getting the movie information, honestly, you only have yourself to blame at that point because we just need to register for the API keys.
So yeah, and we can go back to exercise 1 if we do reach that situation. So next, we'll take a look at a tool called Postman, which is like it's free software, but it's for working with APIs. So yeah, fully recommend it. Just makes everything a lot easier. And just to give you an idea of the requests you can make and the results and how they come back, and just to kind of get an idea of the whole thing. And then we'll get into Plex. So we're going to be doing this in a web client application. So it could have been done in a Java Swing. In fact, it works as a Java Swing application, but yeah, web client is, well, we can show that as well. So we'll be using Eclipse. You may get a message saying your licenses, you want to use a license. So just click on the use trial if you see that. And then from Eclipse, it'll just guide you through all the steps to try things out. And then yeah, we'll see we'll have 2 tabs. So this is already set up, the first tab. And we'll be adding the coding to set up the second tab. And then, yeah, so make some changes in Plex and, yeah, try out some more APIs. So quite a few steps there. And, yeah, we'll add extra functionality, and then we'll move on to the web client template in JavaScript. And, yeah, we'll basically do the same thing, but from a different platform. And yeah, you'll get this nice little animated movie preview here. And then we move on to Abram's settings with exercise 6. So we have got quite a lot in here. So again, you can copy your your folder to work from home. I think we should probably switch over to Abram's stuff at, well, 3 o'clock Central, so 45 minutes.
And if
can
we
start-
stop time when mine is done, we can always go back to yours. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
And both sets of exercises are kind of independent, so they're not dependent on the previous one being completed. So Abram, do you want to talk about yours?
Actually, I kind of want to talk about when we start working on it. That way I can give more context.
Okay,
So
sure,
yeah,
yeah.
let's just go ahead and get started with yours, and that'd be fine.
Okay, so yep, go ahead.
And as always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. That is exactly what we're here to help for. Jeffrey, for the when you're asking for the password, so when you register for it, it could be whatever Microsoft account you want. Then when you get to the actual remote desktop, it should be in the email. The user is CM Tech, and then the password is XCM 2020 hashtag, something like that. But really, the main barrier is the registering for just Microsoft, and that can be whatever account that you want. So it could be a personal, it could be your company. Microsoft will read like an Active Directory. If your company uses an Active Directory with Microsoft, it can read that if it is set up.
Okay. So yeah, Colin and Jeffrey, I'll send that link.
No, I already sent links to everybody, so.
Okay, so did Colin get his?
I believe so. I haven't heard otherwise. Everything should already be sent out. And here, let me show my screen. I'll show you the virtual machine. So yeah, once you are connected and you log in just through your single sign-on in here, let me sign out. I'll just show you.
Yes, I did get mine. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. So once you sign in, Microsoft will sign you in, and sometimes it takes a second. So let me sign back in. Okay. Whoops, wrong link. So here, sorry, let me, so, oh my gosh, come on, Zoom, I'm away. So sorry, here is the link that I sent you. And so once you're signed in and you go to the link, you should see your virtual machines available. You see mine here for Plex Web Generation. If you just click this button down here, connect to virtual machine, and you just downloads the remote desktop, and you could just launch it straight away. And password is, so yep, and then you should be taken to the machine. There you go. So everything that you'll need, we added to the desktop. So if you're having any technical issues, please just let us know. We'll help you as quickly as we can. Amy, did yours ever connect when you were having issues earlier?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. just so everyone knows, the document that we're talking about is the one that says API interactions with Plex at the top. And so that's just going to be our instructions, and we're going to be working all the way through through exercise 5. When you get to exercise 6, we'll kind of stop. So if you get to that point, just kind of stop, and if you have any questions, just let us know. So the link to the document is on the desktop. Here, let me go ahead and pull up the VM again, and I can show everybody. Okay, so yeah, here is the VM and how it will appear when you log in. So the exercises are right here. This is actually a PDF. It's just, there's no Adobe installed on here. So Chrome is what's being used to open it. So everything you need is here. Also, there's shortcuts to any of the documents or the actual files that you need for the workshop. So if you're ever kind of lost at where to find stuff, we put everything on the desktop for you. Just so you know, if you applied for the API key and you haven't received it yet, you can, and you're still waiting for the email, you can continue with the work. You can always switch the API key text later. That's not, we're not dependent on that just to get started. Also, I've also had problems with the API key when using Postman for some reason. If you just put it directly into the browser, you can see if it works. Also, if you tried without the API key in the browser, it might be caching it. So you might want to start like an incognito window and try the API to see if it works. So there's lots of little things that it might be trying to do. The main thing is when we actually run the application, it's not going to be using any cached versions of it. So it should work okay.
Yeah, the web project in Eclipse, the VHS web, is showing a red X against it, which normally means there's an error, but all the errors are showing up as blanks. So there's nothing really to
Yeah,
worry about
it's
there.
just something you have to turn off in Eclipse. It's reading something wrong.
Yeah, the message is blank and yeah, just means nothing. I've just had another look at the exercise. I know I've messed something up, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But when you're creating that view API search by movie title and type, we don't actually use that view any further in the exercise. I kind of changed my mind halfway through. So yeah, it's not going to be a problem, but just a step that you don't need to do. Well, actually, no, it is used, but yeah, you don't really need it. But anyway. Yeah, I've spotted a couple of issues with the way I prepared the model. Nothing that really would stop everything from working, just that some of your screenshots may not show exactly. So yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, we're going to be switching over to Abrams exercises in a minute. So if you haven't finished, you can kind of work on your own time. But I think we'll give another 5 minutes and then we'll switch over to Abrams.
Yes, and just for reference, mine is not going, should not take the full time, so we can switch back to this without any problem.
Okay, and Mark's saying Plex is still spinning.
Yeah, we've had somebody else in another one have their VM. For VM access, no, we're going to kind of kill them at the end of the day, but we can make all workshop materials available to where you can do them on your local machine.
Thanks. Just going to ask that question.
Yeah. So, so good news for the people who are having issues with Plex crashing is once we move on to my section, we're actually not going to really be doing any more code changes in Plex. We'll just be kind of working with existing Plex code that we have gen and built. So I apologize for the Plex issues. I had somebody else in the last lab. For some reason, their VM was having Plex issues as well. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, so Mark, is it just not starting up, or is it in the middle of something?
No, it just keeps spinning. I close it out.
Is it all reset now? Oh.
Can you repeat what you just said?
Is it kind of working now?
Well, let me try it again.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, remember to save your models, regular intervals. For some reason, yeah, some people are having issues with like Plex freezing, which is weird because basically everyone's working off a copy of the same image, but that's technology for you. So yeah, just remember to save regularly. And that's the advice carries on beyond workshops, just in life in general. Control S. And Control Z as well. That's
yeah. Control Z really works well in life, isn't it?
Yeah, I wish I had a Control Z in life. Yeah.
Andrew, I'm having the same issue again.
Okay.
So yeah, it just seems to happen just on a couple of images. So what I did in the last one was I had a spare link to the remote desktop that I wasn't using, but I don't have one for this one.
I can give you mine. Yeah, here, I'll disconnect from mine.
Do you need that for your next bit?
No, well, I kind of wanted to show something to help people to get to the other. So Mark, I apologize, but we're about to switch over. So do you mind just trying to do the second part on that VM and see if it works? If it doesn't, obviously I can send you my remote desktop, but I kind of just wanted to use it just to show at least people how to get to the other section of the workshop. Is that okay?
So yeah, we should package these up because
yeah, I'll just follow what you're doing.
Okay. Well, you should be able. My section actually, you never have to open Plex, so hopefully it will work on your machine. Okay, so if everybody just wants to finish up where they are and go ahead and save, in a minute we'll just switch over. It's a very easy switch over, so but I'll just kind of show everyone what to do. Okay. So if everyone's ready, may I have your attention so we can kind of switch over? You can go ahead and actually save and close your Plex model and close your existing Eclipse workspace. So you really don't need to have anything open but the instructions at this point. And so what we're going to do is we're going to open a separate workspace. I just kind of separated this out from the existing first 5 exercise workspace. So all you have to do is open Eclipse. And if you see on the desktop, there is an API workshops folder. If you go to that, there is a separate workspace called API workspace. If you just copy that folder location, when Eclipse boots up, it asks what workspace you want to open. So you can just paste in that folder location and hit launch. And this will open the new API workspace. So I'll give everybody a minute for that. If you're confused by any of that or have questions, just ask.
Sorry, which folder was that?
It's called API workspace. So it's under C, conference workshops, API workspace. So you can just copy that path. And then when you open Eclipse, set that as your workspace. You'll know you have it open. It's correct when there's one project over here on the left side called REST APIs. And I'm actually going to switch to my local machine for this, just because I don't like having the click delay when I'm giving examples. But so this is what yours will look like when you have it open. And I'll give everyone another minute just to get ready. And just if you have problems, let me know right away so I don't leave you behind. Okay, so to copy, all you have to do is on the desktop, there is a shortcut to a folder, API Workshops. And if you go into the API Workspace folder, just copy that path. So just select the folder path, copy it. And then when you start up Eclipse, it's going to ask you what workspace you want to open. Just paste that folder path in there and click Launch, and it should open up. Did that work for everyone? Is there anyone else still having issues? Okay, I'll take that as a no. And so, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to expose our Plex generated Java as REST APIs. We're going to expose them to an external application that has no idea about Plex, doesn't know, does not care about Plex at all. All it cares is that it has this API that's going to be getting information from. Okay, so what we have here is we have just an Eclipse project that's using something called Quarkus. Quarkus is a Java framework similar to Spring Boot, if you're in the know of the Java sphere, that kind of do the same thing. I like Quarkus a little bit better because it's very compartmentalized and it's a lot lighter weight than Spring Boot. So you only really pull in the things that you need. And so at this point, I'm just pulling in their REST API service. And so the other things to really notice in this project, if you just expand it in the Project Explorer, is there's this jar file, vhsbymail.jar. This is just a packaging of all our Plex generated Java. So this is literally just Plex code in here. And then, so the parts that we'll be working from is if you expand source main Java right here, this has all our actual local Java code. And I have some, under the package com.conference, I have some stub Java functions out here, which is some basic things set up just so you don't have to worry about importing and things like that. There's also a com.complete. This actually has the completed versions of each of these. So if you ever get stuck or lost or you don't feel like something's like totally wrong, you can always reference those. As we go through the workshop though, I would advise not using those straight away, just because just straight copy pasting from another file, I feel like you don't learn what you're doing as much. In the document, there will be a lot of copy pasting because this will all just be Java. And I understand that everyone is a Java developer, but we're all going to go through it together, and I'm going to explain what the Java means, so it's not just some black box that no one understands what's going on. Okay, so once we have our workspace and you have it open, we're going to move on to exercise 7. So that is on page I have no idea because the pages aren't showing up on my thing. So we'll go to exercise 7, creating our first API. So the first thing you need to do with Quarkus is Quarkus needs a Java class, which is just a Java object, to house what it's going to return from the API. So what Quarkus will do is it will take the information in this class and convert it to like a JSON string that then gets returned by our API. So for our first API, what we need to do is we need to return the movie's ID, the name of the movie, and whether it's available or not. So really just 3 simple fields. So 1 integer, 1 string, and 1 Boolean if it's available or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this class first. So this is going to be what is returned by Quarkus. So if we go into our movie info class, you'll see that there is nothing in here except for this function. And this is just something I left in here to make configuration easier. So just leave it there. If you have questions about it, I can totally answer it, but we'll just ignore it for now. And so I give a little section of code for you to copy paste under the creating the class section of exercise 7. So let's just go ahead and copy and paste that from the document, and we'll explain what's going on. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay. So as you're copy pasting, I will just explain all this is doing. So we have our class called movie info, and within there are Java attributes. And so under those attributes, there's the word public means that it's able to, anything that references this class can access this attribute information. And so we're going to be pulling an integer bit of information called the movie ID, a string bit of information called movie name, and a Boolean information called available. And for Quarkus, there needs to be proper Java class constructor methods under here, and that's all this is. So this just creates a blank version of the class if you call this if you create it using this method, or if you want to pass in what the movie ID, the name, and the availability is, you would use this method. You don't have to, again, this is just Java stuff, but you don't have to memorize that. But just know that this is just a constructor. So where when we initiate our class, this is what's going to be used to trigger that. Okay, so we have our class set up. So this is what our API is going to return. So now we have to worry about actually calling the Plex functionality. Okay, so calling a Plex function in Java, there is some methods available that the Plex runtime provides. It's called obapplication.obcall function. It requires several things to be input. One, an instance of the OB user app, that's the Plex runtime app. The actual Plex configuration environment that we're going to be using, and an input array, which is literally just an array of strings for all the inputs, and then the name of the function that we're calling. And what this outputs is another string array of just all the outputs of that Plex function. So this provides us a way to call Plex functions, but assembling that input array kind of sucks. It's not great because it's hard to know what the ordering of the fields are. It's not like it's delimited where, okay, here is position dot whatever. It's just literally just a list of fields. And yes, you could figure this out in Plex, but I actually wrote something to do it for us, and we'll be calling that. So we just have this sub method that we're calling. And so what we're going to end up doing is assembling what's called an OBN class, and that's what Plex's Java runtime actually uses. And we use that to build it for us. So the code that we're writing to call our Plex function is going to look a little more like normal Plex generated Java. So you can use like Plex's generation to give you an idea of how it should look. All right, so we're going to start by creating our methods. So under the creating our methods section of this, we have a method called block fetch movies that we're just going to copy paste. And right now, this is just not going to really do anything right now. We're just going to build it piece by piece. So after you copy paste it, and I hate when my tabs are all off. So all we're doing here is creating a public method that returns a list of movie info objects. So essentially an array of movie info objects. And then we initialize a version of that and say to return it. So right now, if we called this, it would just return a blank list because we don't do anything to add stuff to that list. So now we're going to start adding code to call a Plex block fetch function to then populate that list. And so this Plex block fetch function already exists, and it's this function right here. And so all it's going to do is output the movie ID, the name, an image, and whether it's available or not. And these are just simple Plex fields, and we're going to interpret that data. And so we know this already exists. We know what package it's in. We know its implementation name. So we should be able to reference it pretty easily. Okay. So as we go down, the next step is setting up the Plex objects. And let's go ahead and copy paste this code in here. And then again, I'll try to explain what we're doing with this. Right. So go ahead and put some space when you copy paste between these little try sections. And again, I say this a lot, that if you have questions at any point, feel free to use your mic or use chat, interrupt me at any point. I don't want anyone confused as to what we're doing here. So all we're doing here to start out is we're initializing a version of Plex's Java runtime. So we're creating a new OB user app object, and that's what we're going to use to then call our function. And then we just set what the name of our function is. And you can see we're doing the package.implementation name. So that's all we've really set up so far. So now all our code from here on out is going to go in this try section. And so just to explain what this is anything in the try section, if it fails, it'll catch in this catch block and we'll run whatever, it failed code that we need it to run. And then finally, when we're done, we'll close out all our stuff. That way we don't have stuff hanging out in memory. So we'll just start our app and close it when it's done. So in the calling the Plex function section, we'll just copy paste this code. And this is where we'll actually really start talking about what's going on. Okay. So, and also if I'm going too fast, please tell me to slow down. So what we're doing is we're just creating a new instance of our function object. So this is the name of our function class. So when you generate a Plex function in Java, this will always be generated. And it's always going to be the implementation name _ OB function. And so I just create a new version of that using our app objects call manager. This is just so Plex's runtime does not get confused and will run just like normally if you were just running a normal Plex app. And then we initialize an OB variable group. This is just what we use to set up the input parameters to map into our Plex function call. So we just create a new version of our function, get in variables. And so now we can just start mapping them in the same way that Plex generated Java does. And if you've ever looked at Plex generated source, when you do a call, it will look exactly like this. You'll initiate your OBN, it'll do a get variable on the variable name, it'll do a get field on the implementation name, and then it'll assign the value into that. And so literally you can just copy this part directly from your Plex generated Java. And so what we're passing into it is this is the position field, I just know that. And so I pass in Y, so I want the block fetch to position, so I have position equals yes. I set the rows fetch to 0 because I don't really want it to start out anywhere. And so those are mapped. And then also I have, and I apologize if it puts copy pasting from the document can put some unnecessary spaces in there. So go ahead and clear those out if you don't mind. And so under the position, I'm passing in blank because I want to start at the beginning. And under the selections field, which we use for filtering, we're not doing filtering yet, which we will in a little bit. We're just going to map in blank. And so then we call our new method that we set up in here, where we pass in our app, what function object we want to use, what function name we want to call, and what this OBN we set up is. And so when this call is done, you can see we're setting it to an output string array. And so at this point, we have called our Plex function, and it is going to return our actual output. Now our job is to now parse that output into some kind of readable sense. And so parsing the output, I know I really complained about the input string array. Even though the output string array is in the same format, it's not as bad because like you can inspect it when you're debugging and see what it looks like, and you know exactly what the fields look like. And it's easy to figure out how you need to parse it. And so essentially what I did was I looked at the output array. I know the rows fetch count is the 4th object in the array. Just note all Java arrays start at index 0, so the 4th object in the array will be index 3. So I know how many rows were fetched, and I know the fetch data starts at the 6th object in the array, or index 5. And I know my fetch data from looking in Plex has 4 fields in it. So I know how big each data record is of that array, and I know where to start from. And so using that, we just write some simple code to parse through that array. And so if you go ahead and copy the code from parsing the output, and we'll paste it into here. Sorry, I'm a stickler for having everything formatted properly. Okay, so essentially all we're doing here is I say, I get the rows fetched from the array, and I have to parse it to an int because it's a string, so I have to parse it back into an integer. I know where how many fields are in each row, so in this case it's 4, and I know what my starting point is to start looking at the fetch data. So then I just cycle through while rows fetched is greater than while I is less than the rows fetched, and I just increment through it. And so what you see here is that movie info object that we just set up. I create a new instance of it, and I start setting the attributes of it. So I could set the movie ID equal to the starting point value, and then I set the movie name to the starting point +1, and I set whether it's available or not to the starting point +3, because that's just what I know is in that array. And so there's just a little bit extra code because we set up our movie info to return a Boolean, and the Plex code just returns a status field, either like A for available or C for checked out. So all we do is just have some simple code to see if the value is A, then we set the Boolean to true. If it's not, we set it to false. And so our movie object is created. And so then we add it to our list, and then we increment our starting point and just keep going. And so once this all completes, our data array will now have our full API in there. So I'll give everybody. And so also, if you scroll down in the instructions, and here, I'll move the instructions over here. There is a full list of what this method should look like if you're worried about if you copy pasted it correct or not. Are there any questions so far? Is anyone lost before we actually start exposing this as an API? Okay, so at this point now we have our method to call our Plex function, and we're getting the output of that Plex function into some just plain Java objects that we can then use in our API. So now we need to just actually create our API. So let's go and open movieapi.java. And you can see a little bit of code already in here. This is all Quarkus-based code. Anytime you see this this is going to be Quarkus stuff. And so you can see the @path. What that is doing is that is setting the actual path to our API itself. So anything under here will use, localhost 8080/movies. And then we say what type of data we want to produce and what type of data we want to consume. In this case, we want to do JSON for both of them. So now within this class, we can start adding APIs within there. And so in the creating our API section, all we need to do is copy this little bit of code. So just to explain what we have here, and formatting's so bad. Okay, is our @get. So this is using the get HTTP method. So we're going to be doing a get API, right? And you'll see we're returning a list of movie info objects, which is what we're creating with the method that we just created. And you can see we're just calling our block fetch movies method, and that's what we're returning. So I know that seems like a lot, so go ahead and save. Be sure to save all your files with the changes. And I don't know why I made it spelling. Okay, so once we have it saved, we're ready to go. So Quarkus has a plugin for Eclipse that we can just launch the Quarkus service. You can launch this using the command line as well. I know young developers just love the command line. I personally, I need a user interface. I don't really like using the command line unless I have to. So all you have to do to start that is there is this run button up here. If you hit the drop down next to it, you'll see a REST APIs application. And if you click that, that's going to start Quarkus. And Quarkus is going to start, and you will see all this information being published here. And so once you see it's lit, and once you see it's done and listening, so all the installed features, you're ready to actually use your API. So your API is now deployed, and now you can actually access it. Give everybody a second to kind of do that. And then we're going to open up Postman and actually run our API. And you'll see it working. So once everything's up and ready, there should be a shortcut for Postman on your desktop. So go ahead and double click it and open it. And you could just open a new Postman window. And you can copy this from the documentation, or type it in. You go to localhost/8:8080/movies, and you hit send. You'll see we're going to get an array, a JSON array of data, and this is exactly what we set up in our movie info Java object. And so you can see we're just returning a list of that, and it's returning it in the exact same ordering and sorting that the Plex function has set up. So really, this is just Plex doing the heavy lifting. We're just interfacing with it and creating some plain old Java objects with what Plex is fetching. All right, so I'll give everyone a minute. Hopefully everybody followed along and was able to do that okay. If you have any issues, please speak up or speak up in the chat. I'm here to answer questions, obviously.
Yeah, mine is throwing an error in my movie API.java.
Okay, do you want to share your screen and I can just look at it?
On the return movie info. Block fetch movies.
Here, why don't you go ahead and show your screen and I can just, it's probably just some improper formatting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't seem to know about that method. So can we go to movie info? Can you go back to movies, the movie API, and hover over the red portion? And then,
Is it set to build automatically?
No, wait, go back. I'm sorry, take it off of there so I can see the line. I'm sorry, so go back to the movie info.java, and all right, so it's set up public static, return block fetch movies, and scroll down. Keep going.
It all looks okay.
Yeah, that looks, well.
Maybe just make a change, do a space and then just do a save, and that will force it to build again.
This one?
Yeah, just put a space somewhere where it doesn't matter. Yeah, and then save it again. And it should kind of recompile, because that's definitely there.
Or you can go back to movie APIs and delete the block fetch movies part. Yeah, just delete that whole part and do Control Spacebar. And so, oh, you're referencing the wrong class. Okay. Okay. So yeah, you're referencing. Okay. So Control Z and just undo what you did. Okay, so expand your imports up
It's,
at the top.
line 3, yeah.
Yeah, expand that. Yeah, just click it. Yeah, just click the plus. Click that plus sign. Okay, so it's referencing the completed versions of it. So wherever it says complete, change that to conference and it will work. So you can just double click complete and then just type conference. So essentially what happened, I'm not sure why it did this way. And you can just copy paste conference and yeah. It's trying to reference the versions of the classes having that complete package. And that one, you'll see in an exercise, we actually add an argument to that and just hit and save.
There we go.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, now you should be able to start Quarkus and go from there.
Okay.
All right. You want to stop sharing your screen? I'll re-show mine. Is anyone else having any issues? Dean, if you want, just let me know if yours is up and running and working. I'll kind of use that as a good point that hopefully everybody will be okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if everybody's API is working, we'll go to exercise 8, which is very, very short. I'm just literally going to show you an application then using our API. So I wrote a React.js application to consume these APIs and to show all the movies. It's using a combination of our API and the Open Movie Database API. So essentially what it's doing is it's pulling the list of movies from our API and then pulling the actual movie information from the OMDB API. And so you can kind of see this as a way we don't have to store all the information about everything. We just need to know what we have. And so this is just kind of think of this as a way of like APIs can be very compartmentalized and you can consume multiple ones just to get all the information that you need. So to do this, all we have to do is start VS Code. So on your desktop, there's a link for VS Code. If you just double click it, it should open the workspace automatically. Once your workspace is open, you probably have I'll have a file open called .environment. If you registered for a new API key, this is where you would put that key value right here. And so that will allow you to use that API that you set up. And so really all we have to do now is start the Node.js service to launch our React app. And luckily VS Code has this already built in. So in the left side, there should be an area called npm scripts, and there's one for start. If you just hover over start, there should be a run button right here. If you just click that, it's going to start all on its own, and it's going to launch a browser window on its own. And there we go. Here's our app. And so this is actually using what you just created. And the way we know that is we have this search functionality here. And if you do it, well, yeah, it doesn't do anything. It's not going to return anything, even if you do stuff we have. Oh, whoops, I have the old code in there. I have the wrong code published. Sorry. Anyway, it is using our app, but we're going to add the search functionality to our APIs as well. Sorry, the complete functionality is causing it to work. I apologize. So really what we're doing here is we're just pulling all of the list of information from our database, and then the actual movie poster, the title, the year, the rating, the length, the synopsis, all of that's coming from the OMDB API. All right, so anybody having issues running the VS Code application? Yeah. I'll take that as a no as well. Okay, so now that we have everything running, we need to actually add our search functionality into our API. So what we're going to do is our block fetch function already has that selections input variable, and it uses that to do a contain search for the movie title. And so now we just need to have our method accept an input into our API, and then use that input to pass into our Plex function. And so to do that, we need to first modify our block fetch call. So let's go back into our block fetch movies method. So sorry, go into that. So if we go to movie info, and our block fetch movies method, what we're going to do is in the first line in these parentheses, we're just going to say string movie name, or you can just copy paste it from the documentation. And all we're doing here is just saying there's one input to this method, and it's a string, and it's called movie name. And so now we can then reference that in our Plex code. And so in our OBN selection line, instead of inputting blank, we just input movie name. And so now our code is ready to go. By making this change, you're actually going to get an error in your movie API, and we're going to fix that in a second. But really, that's all you have to do to change the parameters and pass them in. So now what we need to do is then take our API and add the parameter to the API and pass that in as well. And so to do that, I'm going to just kind of copy paste the code, and we're going to explain. Because it's not a lot of code, but just I'm lazy, I don't like typing. So all we're doing here is we added a parameter to our API method, and you can see here we do just string and movie, same as you would for normal Java, but there's a little bit of added code, and this is Quarkus stuff. And so we're adding a query parameter to our API, and we're calling the query parameter movie. And so essentially what this is, when you do it in Postman, would be something like that. And so that's what's being passed into the API, and that is what Quarkus is interpreting and is going to use. And so that's really all we really need. We need to just pass in our movie into here. But you'll notice we add a little bit of extra code. And one thing I just wanted to do was just to be safe in case somebody did not pass in any movie name or any parameter at all, we're handling that null possibility correctly. And so that's all that code is doing. So once you make this code change, go ahead and save. And then you could stop your Quarkus service and restart it. And once you do that, you can go back into the app. You don't need to restart your VS Code app because it's statelessly reading the APIs. So whatever's currently published is what it's going to read. And you can go back and you can just refresh just to be safe. And just search based on movie titles. And so everything we did right there was pretty simple. We add a new parameter to our API. And now we're able to filter on our data. I'll give everybody a minute, and then we'll go on to the next one. And please, the silence is deafening. So if anyone has any questions or is confused or lost, please let me know. I can definitely slow down. So when you're doing APIs, there are several HTTP methods you can do. It's mostly CRUD operations, but GET and POST are two very common ones. GET you typically do for any time you're fetching data, so it's very synonymous. But let's say you want to do an update on data. What you would want to do is you want to do what's called a POST. And in POST, you do not want to do query parameters. You can imagine if you're updating something with 20 fields, you don't want to have this long 20 length string, 20 field length string that you're appending to the end of your API. So to do those, all those parameters need to be passed in the HTTP request body. And Quarkus easily supports this as well. And so that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to add code to actually make our checkout buttons work to check out our movies and to call one of our Plex functions. So again, just like with what we're returning, for any input bodies in Quarkus, we need to have a Java class ready to kind of house that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have an empty class called checkout parm that we're going to use to handle that. And then we're also going to create a class that is returned from that. So things like return code or any return messaging, we can have the returns that way as well. So what we're going to do to start out is we're going to go to our checkout parm stub function. It has basically nothing in it. And just like what we did with movie info, we're just going to set up a very simple class. And so you can see here with what we copy pasted from the document, very, very simple. We're just using an integer of the movie ID and an integer of the customer ID. And then we set up the constructors just like we did before, and that's it. This is all we need to do now to be able to use our body in our request. And Quarkus will be ready to accept this. So let's go ahead and save that. And so now in our movie.api file, we're going to go ahead and add our post API. So let's go ahead and open that. And so below this method, we're going to create a new method. So we're going to copy paste again. And I apologize for the amount of copy pasting, but I imagine everyone just did not want to write a bunch of Java today. And so you can see a slight difference in what we did previously. So first, we put the @post to show that this is a post method. And then also we added to the path. And so you'll notice that this is nested under this path. So now our checkout path will actually be localhost 8080/movies/checkout. And so for input, we have our checkout parms object as an input. And Quarkus will interpret that as that's what the HTTP body needs to look like. And then we'll be returning our movie checkout object, which we'll do in a second. Which we will do in a moment. So we're going to be calling a movie called, oh, darn, it did complete. Sorry, it's supposed to be giving me an error because we haven't created this yet. Okay, so now our API is set up. We now just need to set up the Java method to call the Plex function, just like we did before with calling the block fetch. And so first, let's go ahead and set up our movie checkout object. And this is just what's going to be returned from our API call. And so this is another very simple Java object that we're going to set up. So just go ahead and copy paste again. And you can see we're just returning a string called return code and a string called return method. That's it. Return message, and that's it. And so that's what's being set by our Plex functionality, and that's what we're going to pull from our output. So now all we need to do is create our method to call the Plex function. And so you can see here in our movie API, we're doing a method called checkout movie. Well, that's the method we're about to create. So again, I set this up just for you to copy paste out of the document. I could highlight everything correctly. we'll just paste that down there. And so let's review this code. First, let me get rid of these extra spaces because I like looking at my code in proper formatting. You will see that it's very similar to what we did before. All we did was initialize our OB app again. We set what function we wanted to call. We initialized a function object of what we're going to call. And then we created the input variable and did our mapping. So you can see here in our method, we have an input for movie ID and customer ID. And so we're just passing those in as input. And so any checkout will be done for the customer we pass in and the movie they select. And so we do our normal call handler, and then I just set up the output object to return the return code and the message being returned by Plex. So once we have this and you save, your error will go away because that method now does exist. And so all you have to do now is stop our Quarkus service again and restart it. And our checkout functionality will work. I didn't write the React app to show each time you checked out, like how many are left, but it will show if a movie is all the way checked out. And so the way you can make sure yours is working is just go to a movie. Just keep, oh man, did I break something? Oh. Well, that's demos for you. Well, you should be able to keep checking out and it will eventually have the movie completely checked out. Do I have an error somewhere? No? Okay, I'll have to look into why that happened because in my original version it worked. So that's really it for actually calling your Plex functionality as an API. Are there any questions in that? I understand that it's a little heavy on the Java language, but the same concepts kind of exist with C# as well. You would just use a different API framework, but I imagine the methods around it are probably the same, just generally how Plex's C# was designed. Are there any questions or anything based on that?
How are you authenticating to the database?
So yeah, for this, I didn't really do any user authentication or anything like that since it's just a simple demo. These are all things that you can set up. So essentially, usually with your APIs, you put a layer above it. So for any method that is called, it's going to call some security method, whether it's reading a token to figure out who it is, whether you're wrapping it in a single sign-on provider and using that to figure out who it is. That layer would actually be sitting above this method call. So you would normally set it up that way. For this, just for simplicity, I didn't set any of that up. But we do have other instances and documentation on how you would do that. Sorry, anything else? If there's no other items, if you would like, feel free to continue with where you were with the original assignment. So that's really it that I had. And so we can continue on Andrew's assignment. Again, feel free to copy off the items from the workshop to mess around with on your local machine. If for some reason you do not get a copy of those, just let us know. I mean, it's all on our local workstations. We could package that stuff up and send it to you if you need. So. And just to let you know, you can actually start that Quarkus app in debug if you want to look at the Java code at runtime as well.
And if you are looking to do the well, the first 5 exercises on your own PCs, you will need Tomcat installed and Java as well. So again, they're both kind of freely available. Java's probably standard in most PCs. Tomcat, I can put a link in the chat for that. So I'll put that in the chat. I normally recommend the Windows Service Installer. And if you haven't used, just one last thing, yeah, if you haven't used Web Client before, then if you copy those the workshop folder and try and use it, you'll get a 30-day trial. If you have used it before, then that'll probably have expired, but just let us know at CM first and we can extend your trial version of Web Client so you can carry on working on these things.
And I just want to say, just to save my own save face, the checkout does work. For some reason, the React app is refreshing when I do it. So our APIs work great. I just need to fix the React app I wrote. So I just got word that the machines will be up until 5 Central Time. So if you want to copy stuff off now, it'd probably be a good time.
And if you weren't in the previous session, it was suggested that you use we've got 7-zip installed. So use that to compress, because it'll be a lot quicker to copy the compressed file than all the individual files in that folder.
And great news, everyone. If you want to fix your React app, you can with literally 2 single quotes. So if anyone's interested, I can tell them how to fix it. Okay, so to fix the React app, because to my shock, someone actually wants to know. That's great. Just go to, there's a file called movielist.js. You'll find it under source/movies in VS Code. And in line 33, it says this.create movie list, and it has just an empty in between the parentheses. If you just put 2 single quotes there, it'll work. It's not pulling the search. I'm actually looking into what I would need to change to do that. But if you, on line 33 in movie list, if you put 2 single quotes in the parentheses, it will be fixed. Sure, I can share my screen. That makes a lot more sense than me just trying to explain it understandably. So, yep, right here. So here is movielist.js, line 33. These quotes right here is what fixed it. I mean, there's other things I could have done to fix it. I could have made that method a little bit better to check for a null. In fact, probably will do that. That should fix it. Sure. Yeah, all right, that fixed it too. All right. But yeah, you can just add that and that would fix it as well. So yeah, I apologize. I'm fairly new to React. I've been using it maybe about a month or two. But it's really fun. If anybody's interested in JavaScript, I'd love to talk about it.
So there's a wrap-up session at 4 p.m. Central Time.
Okay, yeah. I'll go ahead and end this session in a minute, and I'll see everybody on the main meeting.
So yep, thanks everyone. We've made you work on a Friday afternoon. Sorry about that. Hopefully you got something from it.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope everything at least was interesting and got you thinking of how you can use this in your own products. And also, thank you, everyone, for coming to the conference. I'm really pleased at how everything worked out this year, especially with all the circumstances that we had. So really, thank you, everyone, so much. And it was great seeing you again. Maybe we'll get to see each other in person in a year and a half. We'll see.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I'll see you on the wrap-up meeting.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, guys.